Okay, we just finished demoing an array of objects, and quite frankly, it was somewhat anticlimactic. On page 447, they talk about how to do a sequential search. We already did that, so we're moving on. On page 450, they talk about two-dimensional arrays. Okay, now it's a two-dimensional array is sort of like, okay, I have students and quizzes, and so every student has like 4 quizzes. So I have 30 students and 4 quizzes. So I need 120 spots in my array, a two-dimensional array. You can almost visualize this like an Excel spreadsheet with rows and columns. Now I will caution you, when it comes time for picking variable names, do not use row and column as your variable names. Use student and quizzes as your variable names, okay? Because those are the real things you're doing. Rows and columns is a mental image, but if this is an array that holds grades of students and quizzes, well then I want it students as the axis and quizzes at the axis, not X or Y or row or column or some goofy thing. Okay, make sense? All right, so constants can come in really, really handy when you do things like this. I'm going to break from tradition. Normally I put constants at the top, but I'm not going to do that here. Okay, so I'm going to say final int num students or something like that. Hey, let's do num employees. Dang. Num employees, I don't know, I got 12 employees. And I want to know, of all my employees, how many hours they worked each day of the week. So I'm going to say final int num days. And it's only 7 days in a week, so that's kind of cool, right? So now, I'm going to build a table that contains their hours. And so maybe I want to do a double this time because it's possible you work 3.5 hours. That kind of makes sense. So I'm going to say double. And to make this guy a two-dimensional array, I have to put 2 little square brackets together. One of them is going to be for the employee axis, and one of them is going to be for the day axis. Kind of make sense? Okay, we'll call this thing, I don't know, hours? Hours worked. That sounds good. Is equal to no. Double. And so, doing it this way, you can actually see what the axes really are here. Doesn't that make sense when you just kind of eyeball it? Isn't it obvious that the employees is the first one and days is the second one? Now, to tell you the truth, that is completely arbitrary. I could have put days first and then employees second. It really doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, when you do it this way, it's obvious. Now, if all I said was row and column, and I would say, okay, which one is the row? And you go, row. I think that's the, come on. When you don't, if you have meaningful names for these things, it makes one heck of a lot more sense. Plus, you can keep track of which one of the axes is the employee axis, which one of the axes is the day thing. Okay. So now that I got that, let's talk about the concept of an inner and outer loop. All right, so let's say I'm going to, hey, I'm going to do something funny here, just for the heck of it. I'm going to create a random number generator here. So hang on a second. So random r is equal to no. Random. Okay, and of course it's going to tell me, huh, what? And okay, make that guy. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create me a series of for loops. The outer for loop is probably, again, it doesn't really matter which one I use first. Even though I put employees first, does not mean that I have to always have the outer loop being employees. Okay? I mean, I am going to do it that way. But I'm just saying, it don't have to be. So for God's sake, do not go in here and say row. These aren't rows, they're employees. So employee 0 to employee less than num employees. Employee. Okay? Cool. And then I'm going to do an inner loop for int days. Days less than num days. Days. Okay, so it's fairly obvious that I've got an inner loop and an outer loop. Cool. And so now I'm gonna pick I'm gonna assign people hours randomly, which is stupid in real life, but this isn't real life. This is a class on how to do Java. So I'm gonna say hours worked. Now, is it fairly obvious that the first one is going to be employee? And the second one is going to be days? Actually, you know, I probably should have done that as day rather than days. I'm just trying to be consistent. I tell you guys do it one way, and I want to make dang sure that I don't do it something different. Okay, and so I'm going to say r dot next int. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Next int 8 plus 1. Okay, so the way it works now is I'm going through and I'm an inner loop and an outer loop, and I'm randomly assigning them some hours between 1 and 8 in a day. Okay, cool. Makes sense? All right. So if we wanted to sum the number of hours worked per employee, okay? Per employee, how would you do that? Well, I'm going to just copy this because I'm lazy. Okay. So pay attention to the wording here. I want to know how many hours per employee. So if I do per employee, I need to come up with a way to have the outer loop be the thing that I'm after. Okay, I'm after per employee, so the outer loop has to be employees. And so I'm going to say here something like int answer is equal to 0. I already have answer someplace. Doggone it. Okay, worked. And then in here, I'm just going to say worked plus equals. And then the same thing over again. So this is hours worked. I'm going to copy and paste because I don't like doing this. And then at the end, I'm going to display how many, display what the answer is. System.out print ln employee number whatever. Hey, this would be a good opportunity to use the F thing. So this would be %D because it's a whole number. Will work. And I made these guys doubles even though I didn't put doubles in there. So I'm going to have to say %F here. And then I'm going to say employee worked. Okay. So they're random, so these numbers aren't going to make any sense. But let's just run it anyway. Oh, illegal conversion. Oh, I made the int. Sorry. I was thinking about the actual hours work guy. Okay, so oh, I forgot the, hey, that's one of the things I always forget whenever I use the printf guys. I have to do my own termination. So for the third time. Okay, so here's some hours that were assigned to a bunch of employees. All right, do you understand that when I was asking for the sum by employee, I had to put the employee on the outer loop. Now, if I asked for how many hours per day, well, then I'm going to need to do this over again, but do it from the outer loop. So the outer loop is going to have to be days now. So I'm going to do this, make that the outer loop. Okay, so the order of the loops depends on what problem you're trying to solve. So in this particular case, the outer loop is going to be that guy, and the inner loop is going to be this guy. All I'm doing is just flipping these guys around, and so they're now outer is inner and inner is outer. Kind of makes sense? Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and steal this because that's still good. And I'm going to steal this because this is still good. I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit as I go along. And this is kind of sort of good. I mean, I'll have to tweak it a little bit. Except instead of employee, it's now going to be day. Okay, that kind of makes sense. So, let me do, well, let's just run it. Okay. All right. So let me go over this one more time. If I said, give me the average or sum or something. Let's see. What is the average for a week rather than the sum for a week, an average for a week? Then the outer loop is going to have to be day, right? Average by day. If I asked average by employee, employee has to be the outer loop. Okay, you got this, right? Which one of the loops is the outer loop depending on what question I'm asking? What is the sum or average by employee? Outer loop is employee. What is the sum or average by day? Day is the employee. Okay, cool. All right. Now, initializing a two-dimensional array on page 454, it's kind of sort of the same. It's just a little bit weirder. So I'm going to do int. What the heck? I'll do. Yeah, okay, I'll do int again. I'm running out of variable names, so jump 13 this time. So this is a two-dimensional array, and I want to go ahead and do that array initialization list, except now it's a little bit more complicated because you have to have a series of these guys. Like this. Okay, so I have a set of nested of these curly braces, okay? All right, so what this is going to do, this is going to produce me a 2x3 array. Do you see that? A 2x3 array? Nod your head. Yeah, you see 2x3, don't you? Okay, good. Now here's a weird problem. Remember the length guy? So I'm going to ask this guy how long he is. And I'll say jump 13 dot length. Cool. All right, let's find out how long this guy is. Well, he really should be 6, right? But no, he says 2 because it's a 2x3 array. So how do you get the length of the other axis? Now, this is somewhat unique. Java does two-dimensional arrays slightly different than other programming languages. And so in order to get the second length, I need to do something a little funky. And so I'm going to say plus and I'm going to just pick one of the items. It doesn't really matter which one, so I'm just going to pick the 0th item and ask how long it is. All right, I'm going to run this. And now it comes back and says 2x3. All right, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark.